Hello, hello, ASMR Nation. I pulled out the little red book again. It is called 100 Things You're Not Supposed to Know by Russ Kick. I read this book just for entertainment purposes, but if any of it really interests you, I would definitely source check it. I got it at Barnes & Noble a long time ago, and I pull it out every once in a while and read one or two of the entries. So the last video I did on this was the table of contents. It's 100 things, so I listed the 100 things. And today we'll just start at the beginning. And well, I'll read the intro first. First, housekeeping. If you're an OG, welcome back. If you're new, welcome. Please consider hitting the subscribe button. It's a free way to help the channel grow. If you did that, you can also hit the like. That helps. Leave a comment, even if it's just a hello or if it's something relevant to the video. And as always, I will link my tip jars in the description box, and absolutely no pressure. Okay, the introduction. What turns a fact into something you're not supposed to know? Basically, it happens when that piece of information is upsetting, embarrassing, discomforting, or even damaging to a powerful party. The list of such parties is long. Leaders of nations, legislatures, militaries, intelligence agencies, justice systems, regulatory agencies, corporations, mainstream media, the medical establishment, the educational system, religious institution, racial and gender groups, academics and scholars in various disciplines, guardians of public morality, followers of ideologies, hypersensitive leftists, conformist rightists, and others. That reminds me. My mom, what do you do when your mom gets like pipelined into some wacko news and you start hearing everything sound a little bit outlandish? So oh, Mom, send me the article. I'll take a look at it. And then you Google. It's so easy to Google a source and see where it leans. And if you're like a little one way or another, cool. But if you're pulling something from way one way or another, not cool. I'm like, who keeps putting this information in front of my mother? There's actually a chart. If you just Google like, I don't know, source checking or something, there's a chart with a lot of the media, like news or publications, whatever. There's a chart, and it will show you on the chart like where it's at, so you can kind of stick with those middle few columns. And you go on the extreme outsides, and you're getting weird. Okay. Other resistance comes from the fact that every historical figure has developed a cult of worshippers and cheerleaders who utterly refuse, in the face of all evidence, to admit the failings, hypocrisies, and in some cases the outright fraudulence of their idol. In other cases, a fact doesn't offend an easily pinpointable institution or group. Instead, it's taboo because it exposes societal lies, the fables we tell ourselves in order to sugarcoat harsh realities. With this in mind, it's time to present a cavalcade of troublesome facts, compressed and boiled down to their very essences so that you can quickly digest them in an info-glutted world. For further explanations, references are given in the back. Okay. So this first one is the 10 Commandments we always see aren't the 10 Commandments. First Amendment battles continue to rage across the U.S. over posting the 10 Commandments in public places, courthouses, schools, parks, and pretty much anywhere else you can imagine. Christians argue that they're part of our Western heritage that should be displayed as ubiquitously as traffic signs. Congressman Bob Barr hilariously suggested that the Columbine massacre wouldn't have happened if the 10 Commandments had been posted in the high school, and some government officials have purposely disobeyed court rulings against the display of the 10 directives supposedly handed down from on high. Too bad they're all talking about the wrong rules. Every decalogue you see, from the 5,000-pound granite behemoth inside the Alabama State Judicial Building to the little wallet guards sold at Christian bookstores, is bogus. Simply reading the Bible will prove this. Get out your King James Version, turn to Exodus 20:17. You'll see the familiar list of rules about having no other gods, honoring your parents, not killing or coveting, and so on. At this point, Moses is just repeating to the people what God told him on Mount Sinai. They are not written down in any form. Later, Moses goes back to the mound where God gives him 2 tables of stone with rules written on them. Exodus 31:18. But when Moses comes to the mountain lugging his load, he sees the people worshiping the statue of a calf, causing him to throw a tantrum and smash the tablets on the ground. Exodus 32:19. In neither of these cases does the Bible refer to commandments. In the first instance, they are words which God spake. While the tablets contain testimony, it is only when Moses goes back for new tablets that we see the phrase 10 Commandments, Exodus 34:28. In an interesting turn of events, the commandments on these tablets are significantly different than the 10 rules Moses recited for the people, meaning that either Moses' memory is faulty or God changed his mind. Thus, without further ado, we present to you the real 10 Commandments as handed down by the Lord unto Moses, as plainly listed in Exodus 34:13-28. We eagerly await all the new decalogues, which will undoubtedly contain this correct version. These are Roman numerals, so I'm just going to read them because at some point I'm going to mess up one of the Roman numerals, so I'll just read them in order, okay? Thou shalt worship no other God. Thou shalt make thee no molten gods. The feast of unleavened bread thou shalt keep. 6 days thou shalt work, but 7th day thou shalt rest. Thou shalt observe feast of weeks, or the first fruits of wheat harvest, and feast of ingathering at year's end. Thrice in the year shall all your men and children appear before the Lord God. Thou shalt not offer the blood of my sacrifice with leaven. I don't know what that word is. Neither shall the sacrifice of the feast of the Passover be left unto morning. The first of the first fruits of thy land thou shalt bring unto the house of the Lord thy God, and thou shalt not seethe a kid, i.e., a young goat, in his mother's milk. So what do you think of that? I think the Bible can be read by, first of all, there's no women in the Bible. No women, there's women in the Bible, but there's no chapters from women in the Bible. And I think that people can pretty much, with any text, any nonfiction, any fiction text, like granted they say the Bible is nonfiction, but it's told by a bunch of different people, and we'll just say any text. We'll leave the fiction or nonfiction out of it. Like, you can read it and you can say it means one thing and somebody else can say it means another thing, so then why even read it? And I'm not saying that to tell people not to read it. Definitely do what you want to do, but when I want to look into the Bible, I don't read it as like a history book. I kind of just try to take the basics out, like the lessons of it, rather than take it as something that actually happened. Like, it's storytelling to me. And that's just me. Don't at me, bro. Don't at me, Christian bros. One of the popes wrote an erotic book. Before he was Pope Pius, Aeneas Silvius Piccolomini was a poet, a scholar, a diplomat, and a rakel, and an author. In fact, wrote a bestseller. People in the 15th century Europe couldn't get enough of Latin novella Historia de Dubus Amatibus. An article in a scholarly publication of literature claims that Historia, quote, was undoubtedly one of the most read stories in the whole Renaissance, end quote. The Oxford edition gives a Cliff Notes version of the storyline. The Goody history tells of the illicit love of Aurelius, a high official in the retinue of the German Emperor Sigismund, and Lucrece, a married lady from Siena. It was probably written in 1444, but the earliest known printing is from Antwerp in 1488. By the turn of the century, 37 editions had been published. Somewhere around 1553, the short book appeared in English under the wonderfully old-school title, The Goodly History of the Most Noble and Her Beautiful Lady Lucrece of Scene of Tuscane, and her Lord Aurelius Vir Plaisant and Delectable into Yareder. Sounds like I'm casting a spell. Despite the obvious historical interest in this archaic Vatican poem, it has never been translated into contemporary language. The languages quoted below mark the first time that any of the book has appeared in modern English. The 1400s being what they were, the action is pretty tame by today's standards. At one point, Aurelius scales a wall to be with Lucrece. When he saw her, he loved her. She clasped him in her arms. There was embracing and kissing, and with full sail, they followed their lusts, and wearied Venus, now with Ceres, and now with Bacchus, was refreshed. Loosely translated, that part means they shagged, and then they ate and drank wine. Okay. All right. And then there's like a little section of the book, but I won't read all that. I need a sip of my coffee. Oh, this one's going to be a good one. Okay. The CIA commits over 100,000 serious crimes each year. It's no big secret that the Central Intelligence Agency breaks the law, but just how often it does is a shocker. A congressional report reveals the CIA's spooks engage in highly illegal activities at least 100,000 times each year, which breaks down into hundreds of crimes every day. Mind you, we aren't talking about run-of-the-mill legal activities. These are highly illegal activities that break extremely serious laws. Right, like the CIA isn't speeding, and that doesn't count, okay? They didn't not sit for 3 seconds at a stop sign. That wouldn't count. Okay, the 1996 House of Representatives Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence released a huge report entitled IC21 ... I always say it ... in my head, so sorry. It's colon. The intelligence community in the 21st century, buried amid hundreds of pages, is a single devastating paragraph. All right, and here's the paragraph. Is it just one paragraph? The CS clandestine service is the only part of the intelligence community, indeed of the government, where hundreds of employees on a daily basis are directed to break extremely serious laws in countries around the world in the face of frequently sophisticated efforts by foreign governments to catch them. A safe estimate is that several hundred times a day, easily 100,000 times a year, the Directorate of Operations Office Manager is engaged in highly illegal activities, according to foreign law. that not only risk political embarrassment to the U.S., but also endanger the freedom, if not lives, of the participating foreign nationals, more than occasionally of the clandestine officer himself. This just does not surprise me at all. Amazingly, there's no explanation and no follow-up. The report simply drops this bombshell and moves on as blithely as if it had just printed a grocery list. One of the foremost experts on the CIA, John Kelly, who uncovered this revelation, notes that this is the first official admission of the definition of the CIA covert operations as crimes. It's kind of like, didn't our Pentagon or whatever entity just say that they lost billions or trillions of dollars? And we're just supposed to be okay with that? I hate it here. The report suggested that the CIA's crimes include murder, this is John Kelly. This is what he had to say. The report suggested that the CIA's crimes included murder, and that the targets of the CS, clandestine service, are increasingly international and transnational, and a global presence is increasingly crucial to attack those targets. In other words, we're not talking about simply stealing secrets, we're talking about the CIA committing crimes against humanity with de facto impunity and congressional sanctioning. Other governments, including CIA reports, show that the CIA's crimes include terrorism, assassination, torture, and systematic violations of human rights. The documents also show that these crimes are part of a parcel of deliberate CIA policy. The congressional report notes that CIA personnel are directed to commit crimes. That just reminds me, tangent. The final season of Snowfall is coming out. If you haven't seen Snowfall, it's probably one of the best shows that's been on TV in the last several years. It's kind of tied to the CIA a little bit. It's about when crack first got big in like the late 80s and out in LA, and how it's kind of based on some fact where the CIA was involved, and then there was like money collected and used for other things by the CIA, and like their informants and people that were working with them, and how they were helping them to push more. So Snowfall is the main character. Franklin is a young kid. You don't really find out the truth until later, and I almost missed it. It's like in one episode at the end of one season that goes back and explains a lot more than you know. But Franklin gets captured by a CIA guy and like held against his will, and the CIA guy is like, okay, you're gonna push this. I think he was already selling something. I don't know if it was that. He's like, you're gonna push this, you're gonna tell me everything I need to know, and you're gonna make money, and you're gonna give me money. So season 4 and final season comes out. It is on Hulu, but I think you have to watch it week to week on Hulu, which sucks. I like to binge. All right, let's do one more. That coffee is really good today. The first CIA agent to die in the line of duty was Douglas McKiernan. As of the year 2000, 69 CIA agents had died in the line of duty. Of these, the identities of 40 remain classified. The former Washington Post and Time reporter Ted Gupp spent 3 years tracking down information with these mysterious spooks who gave their lives to the agency. As a resulting publication, the Book of Honor names almost all of them. The first to die was Douglas McKiernan, uncovered as a State Department diplomat, the U.S. Army Air Corps. Major worked in the capital of China's Xinjiang, I'm not saying that right, I don't know how to say that, province, which Gupp says was widely regarded as the most remote and desolate consulate on Earth. He went there in May of 1947 to keep an eye on China's border with the Soviet Union and to monitor the Ruskies' atomic tests. In late September 1949, during the communist takeover of China, McKiernan left, but it was too late to use normal routes. Incredibly, he decided to go by foot during the winter all the way to India, which would take him across the desert and the Himalayas. He, 3 white Russians, and a Fulbright scholar slogged the 1,000-mile trek in 8 months. Uh-oh, I have a sneeze coming on. On April 29, 1950, they managed to reach the border of Tibet, but guards there thought the men were commies or bandits and opened fire on them. Hitting the ground, the bedraggled travelers waved a white flag, which stopped the gunfire. They slowly walked toward the border guards with their hands over their heads, but the Tibetans shot them, killing McKiernan and 2 of the Russians. To add insult to injury, the guards cut the heads off the corpses. Their remains are buried at that spot. With the documents up from the National Archives, McKiernan's widow and other sources gut-pulled the CIA's first casualty out of the classified shadows. To this day, the agency refuses to acknowledge McKiernan's existence. Okay, so we did 4 today. And I will put a little bookmark in here so I remember where we were. If you are still there, I hope you have a good rest of your day, rest of your work day, a good evening, and I will see you real soon.